Hi, welcome to episode 6 of my Figura tutorial series. In this episode, I'm going to be explaining how to customize the render types and all the render layers, and I'm also going to be explaining how to customize your nameplate. Those are both very nice things to know how to do and not very intuitive. So yeah, let's go. First thing we're going to be looking at is the render types. Figura docs, enums, and then render types. You can see them all listed here. The render types are just a vanilla Minecraft thing. It's how Thanks, Golem. The render types exist in just vanilla Minecraft. It's how it handles its shading. You can see here you have shading for things like the end portal. You have the enchantment glints. Are you serious right now? Anyway, so yeah, this is basically just a list of a bunch of different shaders that you can apply to your model part. I'll explain what each of these are in just a bit. Now, when you're applying the render types to your model part, it's a little bit more complicated than just choosing the render type. There's actually two different render layers, and that's another normal Minecraft thing. The first render layer, or the primary render layer, that's usually where geometry gets rendered. That's where you'll have like your texture, the lighting, you know, like anything in the game. And then usually the secondary render layer is where you have your effect, so that might be the enchantment glint, that might be your emissive texture, or something like that. Figure docs, globals, models, model part, set primary render type. You can see this is the function that will set your render type on the primary render layer, and then there is also set secondary render type, and it's the same but for the secondary render layer. So yep, now I'll show you all the render types. So we have our script here and the render types here. So I'm going to set them up now. First of all, you want to have your model path because it's part of the models API, so I'm just going to go models and leave it at that because I don't really care. I'm just going to set everything. I'm going to mess with the primary render layer first, so I'm going to go set primary render type, and then you just have your string in here. And I'm just going to go the first one, so that's none. And you can see, now I'm invisible. It's worth noting, by the way, if you make this a nil, it will reset it to default. Alright, so looking at our list, first one I want to look at is translucent. So if I type in translucent, there we go. You might be saying, hold up, literally nothing changed. And you'd actually be right. This is the default primary render type for Figura models. In normal Minecraft, translucent is what allows things like ice to work, so textures that have translucent pixels, ones that you can see through but still are there. This means that in your texture, you know, you can have some pixels with opacity like this, and it will render correctly. You can also, of course, have fully transparent pixels as well. And yeah, you can see by default this is how things normally work with Figura models. After translucent, we have translucent cull. And what that does is it just culls the inside faces of your geometry. So you can see before it looks like this, and then with cull, looks like that. Oops. It also allows you to see straight through your model with the transparent textures, rather than before where you could see the inside faces. This is how like the ice works. You can't see the back wall of the ice. If you go inside it, it's just empty. Although it is a block, so it's a bit different, but you kind of know what I mean. After translucent, we have cutout. You can see cutout doesn't allow for any kind of like opacity. It has to either be fully transparent or fully opaque. Any kind of transparency, it will literally just ignore. And just like translucent cull, we also have cutout cull, which does the exact same thing. Now let's get a bit more interesting. Let's look at end_portal. There we go. You can see with this render type, it renders like the Minecraft end portal. You can do a lot of interesting things with this one. I mean, it's the end portal. End gateway is basically the exact same thing. I think it does have a slight difference. Yeah, the end gateway has those little blue particles, and the end portal doesn't. So it's up to you which one you prefer. Now, there's also textured portal, but I'll get back to that in a bit. We also have some other fun ones like lines. I'm pretty sure this is using the same thing that like the hitbox rendering does. It's interesting. There's also lines_strip that adds little crosses to the lines. You also have solid, and this just sets it to a solid color. With all three of these, if you set the color, so go models, set color 100, you can see it updates the color here. Oh, also of course with the normal cutout and translucent. That should be obvious. But yeah, you can see you can customize the color of these lines if you want. There's also blurry, which is an interesting one. It basically enables interpolation, which is the way images are usually rendered. Like here's an example here. This is an image, and if I zoom in, it's pixelated. This is the way Minecraft normally does things. But if I open this in something like Firefox, you can see when you get closer, it's blurry instead. That's because it's using the interpolation. This is literally the exact same thing. Blurry is most useful if you have a really high resolution texture and you don't want it to look pixelated. Now we also have the enchantment glints over here. If I enable it, glint, you can see it does nothing and becomes invisible. Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying before about how like the glint shader and the emissives, they modify what's on the primary render layer, usually on the secondary render layer. And so by putting it on the primary, we aren't actually rendering the avatar, we aren't rendering the parts, and so it's got nothing to render onto. So I'll copy this. I'll make this secondary. I'll just make this nil to make it default. Save this. And you can see now we have our enchantment glint. Might be a bit difficult to see, but here, yeah, it's got the enchantment glint effect. And so yeah, glint is the effect that's used on armor. So if you wanted custom enchanted armor or something like that, you could use this. You can also use glint too, and that's intended for tools and things like that, but you can render it on your model if you really want. That's also a texture glint, but again, I'll get back to that in a sec. Alright, so the next thing we want to look at is emissives. If you just simply want to set a model part to be glowing, just use emissive solid. Although as you can see, it doesn't support transparent textures. So if you have any parts with transparent textures, you'll just need to, I guess, disable them or make them work differently. Yeah. Or you can use a method that I'm going to show you in a bit that would probably be better in a situation like that. Anyway, yeah, you can see all our parts are glowing. This mode of emissive is like the same thing the blaze does and similar glowing mobs. I can't think of any other glowing mob. Magma Cube, I think. Yeah. But what if you wanted the emissives to work more like the spider eyes or the enderman? These mobs have two different textures. So if I go into their files here, you can see you have the enderman texture. And the eyes aren't even purple, they're actually white, which is freaky. And then you have enderman underscore eyes, which is a second texture that goes over the top. It's just the emissive parts. The first texture is rendered in the primary render layer, and that doesn't have, you know, any kind of emissives. And then the emissive is on the secondary render layer, and it's of course using the emissive render type. So if we want the eyes to work like that, we have to do the exact same thing. First thing, I'll just change this to nil, so it's default. I'll make this emissive. Although, of course, this won't do anything because we don't have the texture set. Even if we did emissive underscore solid, it wouldn't do anything because, yeah, there's literally nothing in here. Figura will, by default, make the primary render layer have your blockbench textures, and then the secondary render layer will just be empty. So we need to set the texture. Although, before we can set anything, we have to create it. So let's do that. Just go to your folder and copy your texture. You can name it whatever you want, but I'm just going to call it skin underscore emissive for some of that pre-write nostalgia. Make sure you import your texture into Blockbench, which you can do just by dragging it in, and yeah. Alright, we have our texture here. I'll just create a new layer, draw the eyes, and then delete this, and save. And you can see it's updated within Blockbench as well. Now we need to actually set the texture. On the models part API, you can see you can also set the primary and the secondary texture. Secondary texture. We of course want to set the secondary texture, so I'll show you that. There's a lot of different things you can do with this. This is a part of the whole texture API, so won't worry about it too much. I'll just show you the function you need to type. Of course, so you got to do your model part path, so I'm just going to go models, and then set secondary texture. And then the first thing we need to type is custom. because we're doing a custom texture. Alright, next we need to specify our texture, so we need to use the textures table. That's just part of the textures API, don't worry about it too much. I will do a proper textures API tutorial, it's a big topic. After textures, you just want to write square brackets, quotation marks, and then the path to your texture. In this case, it's really easy. It's just inside the main avatar folder. So we just do skin_emissive, skin_emissive. Save that. And you can see now we have glowing eyes. That is spooky. Now, just naming the texture like this will only work if, your texture is inside the root folder of your avatar. If you had another folder inside your avatar and you had your texture in there, and I also need to make sure I update this in Blockbench. There we go. Save that. You can see it doesn't like that. We do need to specify the folder it's inside. So to do that, you just go folder dot and then texture. Pretty simple. And you can imagine if you just had a folder inside a folder, you just keep going. Whatever your path is, like that. So we have our emissive now, although I have made a mistake here that you might not have picked up on. I am using transparent textures here. Now you can see it does work, but it can cause you a massive headache. Just like how emissive_solid doesn't account for transparency at all, neither does the normal emissive. So if I added some more opaque textures, you can see it just doesn't care, and that goes right down to the extreme. So you can imagine if you accidentally put down like 1% white, it would end up messing up your emissive and you wouldn't even notice. Fortunately though, the whole way emissive works is when it runs into like darkness, it just makes it transparent. So the more black it is, the more transparent it is. So if you just make all the transparent pixels black, it sorts out all those issues. And then also, if you started putting 1% white everywhere, it does actually appear as slightly transparent, which is what you want. It's just better all round to have black as your background. If you wanted, you could also use emissive_solid on this layer, but I don't know, to me that feels kind of pointless. Just do it on the normal layer. A little secret I haven't actually been showing you, because I think it's important to understand how everything works. You don't even need to specify the render type to add the secondary texture like this. You can literally just specify the secondary texture and it'll set the emissive for you, because the default secondary texture for Figura models, the default render type for it, is already set to emissive. You can also do some other pretty fun stuff. Like I'm going to set this to transparent again. I'm going to make this translucent. And now you can see we have the white eyes from this texture. If I put like black here, you can see that it is the texture being overlaid. Now if I did models, set secondary color, and then I made this like red, you can customize the color of your texture being overlaid onto your model part. Or alternatively, you could modify the primary color and then it won't modify the secondary like texture that you're doing on top. That can be really useful. Okay, that's nearly everything with the render types and the render layers. Now there's just textured portal and textured glint. Now what textured portal and textured glint does is it's the same thing as the end portal and the glint, except you're able to customize what texture it uses, which is really cool. So in vanilla Minecraft, the end portal uses this end portal texture. Here's the glint in here. As you're probably guessing, the texture it uses is the same texture that its current render layer is. So you can imagine if I just did textured portal, yeah, it looks pretty weird because this texture is not for this. So I'm just going to use this end portal texture I found from this resource pack here. I'll have the link in the description because I'm not about stealing. Move this into our avatar. Move that into Blockbench. And I could either just change all the textures to be end portal. You can see that works just like that. That's cool. Or you can keep it as whatever your normal texture is if you have one. And of course just update it in your script. End portal. I'll make this the primary texture. And there you go. And it's the same thing for glint. Textured_glint. This needs to be the secondary render layer. Has no texture, of course. If I set the texture, set it to secondary, you can see it'd be a little weird. I'm going to again steal from someone else. This is a Rainbow Enchanted Glint, link in description. I'm going to use this Enchanted Glint entity texture, and I will just shove this into the avatar. And there we go. Now, Rainbow Enchant Glint. Now there is one render type you might have noticed I missed. That was eyes, and I don't think it's really worth going over. It's the exact same as Emissive, but it fixes some issues with certain shader packs. Only use it if, you know, you're specifically having those issues. And yep, that's Emissives. So, time for the next part of the video. So, let's look at the nameplate. /Figura docs globals nameplate. Then you have all these different APIs. If you just look at the nameplate API, you can see when you edit your nameplate, you can edit in 4 different places. You can either edit everywhere, you can edit just in the chat, so when you send messages, you can edit on the entity, which is above your head like you see now, and then list is just the tab list. I think these should all explain, yeah, they all explain if you look at them. It doesn't say how to actually edit the text though. To do that, it's in the nameplate customization. Just set text here like this. So, to do this, of course, you're first going to need to go nameplate, then specify which nameplate you're going to be doing. I'm just going to go all, set text, and then you're going to need your string in here. And so I'm going to go, whoa, custom nameplate. You can see it also works if I type in chat, and in the tab list, it's changed as well. And of course, that would change depending on what I'm using. If you just specified one of them, it'd only change one of them. I'm just going to be showing you all because it's simple. Now, you can also customize your nameplate just like on the entity, so above your head, with some interesting things. You can change things like the position, you can change the scale, you can enable a shadow and edit that shadow. You can choose if it's visible or not. You can change the background color, so like that gray square box. You can change how bright it is. The pivot for like scaling it. There's a lot you can do. This is all pretty simple though. You can just have a look in the docs and it'll tell you what it does and how to do it. Like, yeah. If you wanted to set the pause, you'd of course need to make sure you're only editing the entity because this is only entity stuff. And then set pause, I don't know, 0.100. And then you can see, you can move it around. That's simple. The stuff I'm really interested in showing you is customizing the text itself. So yeah, first, this is the simplest way to edit the colors and the formatting and stuff in your name, and that's just using the section sign symbol and its formatting. So you can see them all here. If you're not aware, Minecraft has this formatting. It's used in things like resource pack names, server names, all that kind of stuff. It allows you to customize all these colors. All you have to do is put in the section sign symbol, which is this symbol here, and then the number or letter after it, and then it'll format everything after it to have all those things. And you can see you can set all the colors, and you can do some other formatting things like underline, strike through, bold, all that kind of stuff. So to use the section sign, you can either copy it from like this page or just Google it and copy it. Or if you're using Windows and have a numpad, you can press the right Alt key and hold it down, and then press 2 on the numpad and hold it, and then press 1 on the numpad and then release all 3. Section sign appears. And then you just do your letter. I want light purple and I want bold. So I'm going to go N is D and bold is L. Save that. You can see now it's appeared like that above my head. And if I wanted to change the color halfway through, I could do something like this. You can see that at work, although I need to set it to bold again. Now, Figura also has a couple of shorthands you can use, which can make your life easier. If you want, you can use this $, curly brackets, and then type name, like this, and it will automatically put in whatever the name of your account is, which means you can do formatting like this, and it will automatically pick the name. Something like this would do the exact same thing, but it's a little bit more of a hassle. Like I said, it's just a shorthand. Very useful to know. Something else that's really neat is you can also specify the position of the badge with the same kind of thing. You can go $, curly brackets, and then badges. and now it's chosen them to be there at a space that's just like normal. But then if I wanted, I could make it so the badges appear before the name. You can also do seg dab, which is the badges backwards, and it renders them from back to front. I have a hunch that that's going to be changed to something that's a bit more accessible than badges spelt backwards. That's so stupid. So yeah, if that is updated, I will put that in the comments and let you know in a follow-up video. Something else that's kind of funny, the formatting works with the badges. So you can see they're weirdly bold. It even changes the color of the underline. That's so weird. And finally, Figura has custom emojis, as you might know, and you can add these to your nameplate as well. So you might want skull. And so if you wanted, you could literally just put skull in your nameplate and then it'll work. You can put them in the beginning, in the middle, anywhere. Yeah, nameplate. Also a fun little Easter egg, if you do end K, the emojis randomize. Extremely wacky. These kind of flashy nameplates though are probably a really good reason why the nameplates are not enabled by default in the trust settings. Anyway, so you might be thinking, that's it. That's all there is to nameplates. Wrong. You can also do JSON formatting, which is a whole other world. When you're doing the JSON text, make sure you use single quotation marks rather than double quotation marks, because JSON uses double quotation marks. Anyway, inside here, do some curly brackets, quotation marks, go text, colon, and then your text here. You can just do $name thing. And there you go, that's worked. You can see if I put some more text like before it, yeah, that would work. But then you can also do some extra fancy stuff, like you could go colon and then color, colon, could go red, now it's red, or blue, now it's blue. Or you could do a hex code, A672EF. There you go, now it's purple. You can even do things like create a new line with the JSON. So you could go name, then a new line, and then I'll go whoa, and then have my badges. Actually, I will have the badges on the first line. There you go. That's pretty neat. Oh, by the way, of course, new lines only work on the entity. In chat, it just appears as normal. Anyway, like the rest of this is just Minecraft's JSON formatting for the colors and stuff. I'm not going to teach you how to do that. There's other resources, which I'm going to show you now. So yeah, you can see it does this side, which of course I'll link. I'm linking everything. This has some information about the JSON, like all the different colors, formatting, blah, 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 blah. You can write the JSON yourself if you really want. But I think the easiest way to do things is with a JSON formatter. This is just one of Minecraft.tools. I'll, of course, have this in the description. And if you wanted, you could go completely wild with this. Like, whoa, this is so cool. And I'll have the first part of this be yellow. Then I'll make this red and this that shade of blue. Gonna make part of this bold, part of this italic, part of this obfuscated. I'll make that strike through. I'll add a tooltip hover that'll say amazing whoa, and I'll make this green. Imagine typing this out manually. Anyway, yeah, copy for the correct Minecraft version. In this case, it's probably going to be 1.16 plus. And then in here, if I just pasted this, there you can see that works perfectly fine, and it even has the tooltip hover. Now I've created a new one here called this doesn't work, and if I paste it in, you'll notice it completely breaks. And that's because we have an apostrophe in here. Basically, it's gotten confused and thought this was the end of the string, and then it's just started going crazy, as you can see, and completely broken. Fortunately, Lua has a way to fix this. It's with nesting strings. That's why I had you use the normal quotation marks normally, because if I'd asked you to use double, you can see it would have broken, because this here is nesting the strings. But you need to go one layer deeper, basically. After you have these strings like this, you have double square brackets. And these actually work between multiple lines, which is interesting. That even does a new line. I didn't actually know that. Huh. Anyway, If we put this inside here, you can see it also breaks because this has square brackets inside it for its formatting. And so you have to go one layer deeper. Lua allows you to put equal signs between these brackets as many times as you want. That allow you to nest the brackets deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper forever. So if we put this string inside the nested brackets, you can see it works now. Nested brackets is something important to know in general, and so yeah, that's something to remember. Anyway, yeah, that's the render layers and the render types, and also how to customize your nameplate. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next episode. See ya!